Edge Radio.
Hello, folks. This is Wayne Brown from the Talkie show, and this is one of the weeks where I have one of my guests. And tonight, or today, I have the very lovely KayTee. So, KayTee, would you like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Wayne. Thank you for having me. Little bit about myself. I'm married to a fabulous husband, have 3 lovely sons, live on acreage, excitingly building a little hobby farm alongside owning mechanical workshops and studying still pace by pace along my journey to become a psychologist one day.
Nice, very nice. So in the scale of sort of here's your start and there's your finish, how are you going with your psychology studies? About halfway there, or?
I would say that I'm more than halfway through, because it's a
Nice.
very protected vocation in Australia, and so it should be. It's a very long pathway. So I've completed bachelor degree, I'm halfway through an advanced grad dip, and then there will be either supervision or a master's after that. So I've probably got another 2.5 years full time if I could put that time into it, but who knows how long it's going to take me to finish it.
Yeah. Well, my brain just started to hurt just hearing you talk about all of that. It's like, oh, all that study. Yeah. Anyway, well done. You're finding obviously something that resonates with you and is something you really want to do. So excellent.
Yeah. Long game.
Yeah. Well, that's what's a lot of things in life, really. So, as I do with my guests, I send people out a list, and somewhere along the line, I haven't sent it or you haven't received it or something. So we're just winging it a little bit. And you gave me the topic of ethics. Now, this is a very interesting one, quite broad. So we can go in all sorts of areas with this. So you've known me long enough to know I don't follow structure overly well. So we could end up anywhere with it. So what would be your take on ethics? You know, what would people define as ethics, and how do they fit into our lives and what we do?
Yeah, sure. So I guess ethics are one of those things they're so multifaceted. So personal ethics, or people might call them values, they sort of form the foundation of where you make choices for yourself and your life, and they kind of integrate into all parts of who you are, if you like. Now, you may have a really clear idea of what they are for yourself, or you may just loosely go with your gut, and somewhere in those decisions we could probably pick out some overarching guidelines, I guess, that have been formed in your identity that say, this is how I want to show up in the world, this is how I want to treat people, because this is how I want to be treated myself. And I guess that's probably where I'd like to cache the conversation. The only other place that you would see ethics, I guess, would be professionally. And they're sort of externally constructed by society or by the vocation you've chosen, whereas personal ethics are all experiential, and, you know, they kind of come from the person themselves.
Right. So would you say ethics, and I don't know a huge amount, so I'm sort of going a little bit blind here, but would you say ethics is like an umbrella term for morals, values, all of those sorts of things?
Yeah, they're like the big picture things that you have those choice and belief systems built within. So it could be like integrity, could be an ethical standpoint, or it could be honesty. And it filters into how you communicate with people, how you choose your actions. But they are kind of those umbrella buckets, if you like, that lead you along the way.
Yeah, because I've always struggled to sort of understand the differentiation, but that sort of makes sense to me about ethics covering sort of all of those things that are deep within us. Now, just to tie in a little bit with your studies, how much of our ethics, our morals, our values, those sorts of things, how many of them are intrinsically tied into who we are, as in it's like a DNA thing, and how many things would be dictated by our culture, our upbringing, our experiences, that sort of thing? What would be your take on that?
Look, I would suggest that there's no real this is one of those nurture versus nature kind of discussions. The only genetic component, I guess, would be the fact that two people came together and made you as being your parents, and that's the part of this society world that you've found yourself growing up in. For me, ethics they're built upon experientially. So they do take from parenting, they take from response to trauma, if you like, they take from culture, from where in the world, the level of privilege you have, your political systems you belong to, religious systems you belong to. So they're a personal filter of all of those experiences. So I feel ethics are really the nurture side of that discussion rather than the nature side.
Right. Okay, because I've actually got an interesting story regarding that nature versus nurture, if you'll allow me to go off on a slight tangent. I don't know if you're aware that I'm adopted. I think I may have told you.
Maybe, yeah.
Probably somewhere along the line. Well, I always wondered about that nature versus nurture thing. And my first car was an automatic, the first one I purchased. And my dad used to watch me driving, and I'd have one foot on the accelerator and one on the brake. And he'd be like, it's 1 foot for both of them. And I used to go, but this feels comfortable. And then years later, when I found out I was adopted and I met my birth parents, they were visiting me. And my birth father said, I'm just got to go out and pick something up. You want to come with me? And I'm like, yeah, no worries. Jumped in the car, and it's an automatic. And I looked down, and he's got 1 foot on the accelerator and 1 foot on the brake. So it's like, it's like, is it genetic? Is it it's an odd thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely a believer that, there are hard-coded things into our wiring, and they are passed, through the transference of epigenetics. But this is a discussion that could take up like I'd be happy to go there, but it could take up the whole segment.
But then again, if it's interesting enough, let's explore it. So
sure.
Okay, so here's a hypothetical. You've got something like that, which seems on the surface to be hardwired into myself. If you have a particular moral or value that seems hardwired, do you think it'd be easy for people to overcome that sort of thing? As in it'll be dictated or altered by your culture or your educational system or your family. Do you think that would happen, or do you think that sort of thing's just you can't resist it?
Look, I think with ethics, there's a choice, especially as you become an adult. There is some there should be, in my mind, some flexibility around examining your own ethical standpoint, not necessarily changing to the whims of culture or others around you, but definitely taking a step in and saying, where does this come from? And sometimes it can feel like there's no answer to that. So, potentially there's so many things we don't know about the brain and, the wiring and things like that. I suppose that there could be that nature side of things. But I mean, for myself, growing up in a household that was very strict in some beliefs, as an adult, I have come to learn that that's not my belief. I don't hold the same beliefs as my parents. So at some point, I've made a choice to vary from the space that I was raised in, the belief patterns that I was raised in. So I believe that it's an evolution rather than a hard coding, if that makes sense.
Right. So if someone was listening to this, and hopefully a lot of people are, would you say that if they're faced with that belief, like you've heard the story of the two sons that are raised by an alcoholic father, one becomes an alcoholic and one never drinks, and they say it's because of my dad. Would you say that would be a value that they've seen, and then they've made that conscious decision like you have, to go, you know what, that doesn't fit with me. It doesn't feel authentic. Therefore, I'm going to go down this path instead?
It's a really interesting perspective, isn't it? Because
Mm.
the way I look at it is you either do things because of your parents, or like to follow their steps, or to reject their steps. And that's often how we develop as people, right? And that extends out to our religious beliefs, it extends out to our governmental systems. Like you go really micro, you can go really macro with that as well. So
Yeah.
one brother has decided the pain of being brought up by an alcoholic is too much for me. I'm never going to do that to anybody. I will make a choice for myself and I will never drink. The other brother may have decided the pain of being brought up by an alcoholic father was too much for me. I'm going to become an alcoholic because that numbs the pain. So like both perspectives come from the individual themselves. And it's to move further away or to move closer to. So an interesting definition of relationship is it's the closeness or the distance between two objects. So you can move toward a belief system or you can move away from a belief system.
Yeah. Yeah. And sort of one of the reasons I bring it up, because I know for myself, like you, I've had to look at my beliefs and my values and my morals and decide which ones feel authentically mine and embrace them, and which other ones I don't necessarily reject, but I place them to one side and say, I don't think that serves me. And I know there was a time where I felt I couldn't do that, you know, when I was in my victim mode and all of that sort of rubbish. Did you have a point where you went, hang on, I can actually change this attitude?
Well, that in itself is a lifelong journey, right?
No, but what was the moment when you went, oh, hang on, this isn't my belief, I can put this aside? Did you have like an epiphany, or was that one of those gradual evolutionary things?
I think it came from interacting in the world, growing into my own skin and researching, becoming educated, becoming exposed to other belief systems outside of the parental home. And there was a moment for me where, particularly one I'm thinking of in regards to my dad, had a very hard line on quite a few things. And I felt this unconscious thought come into my head at once about something. And I stopped myself and I thought, whose voice is that? Whose voice in my head is that? Is that actually a part of me that has mirrored and copied the patterns of my parent? Or is that a part of me that truly believes that thought? And I think that was my position to step into, then questioning, what else might I not believe? What else might I want a different perspective? Or what else can I educate myself and expose myself to that will give me more perspective?
Yeah. And around what age did that happen?
I think it would have been in my late 20s, early 30s.
Oh, okay. So you're well and truly an adult.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I rebelled against my parents, don't get me wrong.
I was about to say, it's almost who didn't.
Exactly. But that was a struggle, right? That was trying to position to be seen, to be heard, whatever the personal experience is for that person. It's about growing up into who you are and finding your path and your tribe, and it's all developmentally perfect when it comes and happens. But this was a conscious adult reckoning with myself.
Right. Yeah. Were there ever people that sort of supported you or gave you the courage to face up to some of these things and deal with them so you could get rid of the ones that weren't congruent with you?
Yeah. So when I had my third child, I had postpartum depression, I guess you would say, or a reawakening of childhood trauma through the process of mothering and birthing and the experiences that happened outside of his birth. It wasn't about him particularly. And I sought the assistance of a therapist at that time, and they have become very embedded into my self-checking. So my reparenting of myself, if you like. So I've worked with them now for 16 years.
Oh, wow.
On and off on different regularities and in different ways. But now I can go back and say, well, look, I missed this message as a child. Like in my parents, in the way that they raised me, doing the best that they could with what they had. Like, no, I don't judge my parents anymore. Well, I try not to anyway. This piece is missing from me. And when I go out into the world and I have interactions, I can't fathom the answer. Like, I don't know if my response is over the top, if it's not enough. And setting boundaries is one of the things that I really struggled with. But Dr. KayTee Terry from Totally Alive has been influential in my life in helping me work through that in a therapeutic space. And then the loving support of my husband, Michael. He doesn't always agree with where I find myself, and sometimes it causes conflict in the relationship because I'm trying to work through something and I may outwardly spill that into our discussions. But we're in a point now where we can recognize that and, just say, oh, that's actually me. Let me deal with that. That's not about you. That was a trigger. You grow as a couple through those things.
Yeah.
So, there has definitely been people in my life that have supported me with these things. And I have a beautiful group of friends that I can ring and we can have these really good, hearty discussions about things like that.
Okay. Well, it's sounding like, you're giving lots of bits of information that hopefully people will listen to and go, oh, maybe I should go and find someone I could explore these things with. So this is really cool. I'm enjoying this. And I'm learning more about you, which is really cool.
Sure.
Where was I going to go with that? No, that question's gone. I'll have to come up with another one. It'll come back. If it's important, it'll come back. So for me, I know that I've often felt torn because I have those genetic morals and values. And now that I know my biological parents reasonably well, I can see where I get them from them. And then I have my adoptive family where I can see the ones I've got from them. So sometimes it's a real pain trying to sift through all of these and work out, okay, I've got my loyalty to my mum and my dad, but my biological parents are tapped deep inside me with my genetics. So sometimes it's really hard to find your true values, and that I'm getting better at it. It's still a struggle sometimes. Where would you say if someone was struggling with that, like you said, the little voice in your head when you're belittling yourself or something, where would you say would be a nice, gentle place to start for most people?
I think one of the sentences that was told to me once, and I often pick up little things like we all do, and they take on a meaning of their own, even if that's not how they were given to me in the first instance. But one of the things that I always come back to is that the people in our lives offer us the most opportunity for healing and growth. So when I'm challenged, I have in-laws. I've had them for quite some time. There is some cultural differences in our mixed family. It's really good for me to be able to think that through, like what is this challenge showing up for me? So on one hand, I've got this perspective, and on one hand, I've got that perspective, and then being able to use my own, I guess, my heart as a tuning fork to sort of measure the two. Like, how heavy does this feel? How light does it feel? How in tune with me does this perspective feel? And is there a meeting of two or a compromise, a blending of these that are uniquely me, because I have these influences that are external. We can't reject our, where we live and who we are, and we need those people and influences, and even through hard times and trauma, there is something in it for us to grow through. So that for me has always been a really nice way to come back to it. What's the opportunity here? Like for me personally, to grow and establish a belief of my own.
Right. Now, I know your lovely husband is of a different cultural background. Do you think there's a vast difference between your values, or do you find that they're mostly pretty common?
I think that we've been married now for 28 years.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah. And, I was 18, he was 20 when we got married. We grew up together, basically. I think that what has kept us together has been an innate similarity in value, overarching values. They may come out differently. They may look slightly different and sound slightly different. And there are some opposing beliefs in our systems, but ultimately things like compassion are both very important for us. Communication, integrity. I think that there are enough common values for us to be able to navigate and negotiate where we're different.
Right.
Did that answer your question? Sorry.
No. It's a good. You're giving good answers. I like it. That actually reminds me, because my wife and I are very different cultures. I'm Western, she's Eastern. So sometimes our values are completely diametrically opposed. And it's like, you believe that? It's crazy. So what I want to ask you, because you both met when you were very young, you may not have been aware of this, but were you consciously looking for values that were similar? Did you both value family? Did you always put family first and make sure that that was strong in your life? Was honesty a strong value? Did you have, if you can recall, were you sort of thinking, does this man have the values that I seek? Do they match with who I am?
Look, I think that was probably too adult a thought process for me.
Well, that's why I'm saying
time.
you're probably a little too young.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I met Michael, I'd literally just turned 16. So I think that I was in a developmental stage where I didn't even know who I was. And I was looking for people. I was looking for certain aspects in him, but I don't, and I was attracted to certain aspects of his personality, but I don't know that I would say that they are his overarching values. And I think that was more from a wounded space.
Right.
And this is not the complete truth, that nothing is ever the complete truth, right? There was so much more about our meeting, but I was in a wounded heart when I met my husband. And I think that part of me connected with him first, if that makes sense. And then then there were other parts of me that got on board and went, well, this guy's actually pretty cool. And I'm just going to spend the rest of my life.
And they were right.
And they were right. Yeah.
But that actually brings us back to something you were talking about before, about the people in your life that challenge you. And they're the ones that we really should bless and be grateful for, because they're the ones that make us look at those parts of ourselves that are wounded and need nurturing and healing and being listened to and valued and all of that stuff. Do you think a lot of people don't realize it enough about relationships? Because I know that's certainly been true with my relationships. The ones that challenged me the most were the ones that moved me forward the most.
Yeah. I guess it's that old adage of, the teacher shows up when the student's ready. And I think that's very true for personal growth, like our higher self, spiritual self, connection to grace, whatever people feel is that part of them that connects to the, more than themselves. will provide you with those opportunities when you're ready. That's my belief system, is when you're on your path and your soul is ready to heal that piece, you'll be presented with a person or an opportunity that will bring that up for you.
Yeah. Okay. So just
Um,
bringing it back to the original topic, because I've thought of a couple of things. We've been
Sure.
talking about our own individual ethics and values and morals. Have you ever heard of Darren Brown?
The name rings a bell, but you have to put him in context for me.
So he's an English guy. He started off as a magician, then he learnt psychology and all of this, and he does these theatrical shows to demonstrate how we can be manipulated mentally and all of this sort of thing. And one
Okay.
of the shows he did, he invented a game show and had all the audience come in, had them put a mask on so they were anonymous, and then they had set this bloke up and had various interactions where there was a path that they went down. So you can either choose to have A or B, and everyone votes, and then they make that happen to him.
Right.
And
Yes.
progressively, these choices got more and more horrible, like vicious. And, where he lost his job and he was arrested and all this sort of thing. And then they set it up with, I won't spoil it, but a twist at the end. And all these people suddenly realized together as a group, they had chosen the moral of, let's have fun with this and destroy his life. Do you think as a collective, we all need to sort of look at our morals and our values and not just find them, but to stand up for them and stand by them? Do you think as a collective we need to do that?
Absolutely. I am personally a big believer in your thoughts and your words have value. They have weight, they have consequences. And I do the best I can to put positive things into the world and to protect my boundaries in a powerful way rather than a spiteful, vindictive, aggressive way. And I think that if we as a collective did more of that, then we would see the consequences of that as well. But unfortunately, we're in survival mode most of our lives, right? And we've seen that over the last few years. We've been bombarded with reasons to survive and be individualistic and detach from the collective. And this goes way back in history, where they separated church and spirituality and from science. Spirituality from science. And we weren't allowed to have the belief of the unconscious and the collective. So yes, I think that as a person, as an individual, we have a responsibility to how we put ourselves out into that collective. And I think then as a society, we have a responsibility to care for our fallen and to ensure that the herd is protected. And, there's so many other metaphors that I could use, but one that was brought up in the context of mental health was pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's physically impossible to be sitting and pull yourself up with your bootstraps, right? And that's about force, and it's about pushing through without support. And I'm not a believer in that kind of detachment. Strong boundaries, yes. Absolutely happy to send people's negative energy packing. Don't come into my space with that.
Yep.
But I do believe that what we put out contributes to the world as a whole.
Yeah. And I mean, negativity's got its place to a degree, I feel. However, a friend of mine's got a wonderful approach. When she has a gathering with her friends, they all have exactly 5 minutes each to have a whinge, and then that's it. There's no more. So get it all out, purge yourself, and then we're back to normal. And the one I like to ask people when they're having a bit of a whinge is, after a while, I go, so what are you going to do about it? Because it's all nice to have a whinge, but you got to be active. You got to stand up for, like you said, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all that rubbish. So, you've got to stand up and go, this is how I feel. This is what I stand for, and move with it. So, but also why I went with that previous question about as a collective, as you just touched on, for the last few years, we've had some real challenges. And I know when all the rubbish started, I was very hesitant to voice my views because I didn't want to be isolated or attacked or judged or kicked out or anything like that. So I hesitated for a while. But eventually I was like, you know what? I can't not stand by my values of being honest, standing up for not just me, but for people that can't. People that haven't yet learned to stand up for themselves or don't realize that they need to be stood up for. It's like seeing someone being bullied on the street. You've got to go up and say, hey, what's the go? So, that's sort of why I was asking about that, because I think that's probably one of our biggest challenges, is having people that have got that courage to stand up with their values and go, this is what I stand for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all that balance and that nuance of the scenario. One man army doesn't get very far, but unless one man starts, there'll be no movement.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And I'm a big believer in meeting people where they're at. And we are entrained into a system that teaches us to trust our doctors, trust our politicians, trust the systems, trust the hand that feeds you. It's not always the right path, right? So it's a balance. It's a balance of deciphering when it's safe and when is right for me to step into an empowered state, and when I actually need to be protective to ensure I'm not further harmed.
And I suppose that ties in nicely with what you were saying before about when you find your own values, you'd go, well, hang on, I believe in honesty, but I've got a feeling my government may not be telling me the whole truth. So it's that you get that little chink in the armor, that slight little glitch in the matrix, and you go, hang on, something's not quite right. And you have that courage to go and explore that and say, is this belief mine? Does it sit with who I am? So, I think that's a nice, valid point of yours, where you've got to find that courage to find it.
Yeah, and you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything, right?
Now, and a lot of people do, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But hey, if we can inspire one person a week to sort of stand up for themselves and what they stand for, we'd do a lot better.
Yeah. And finding your own personal values is one of those things that you can do as a journey. You start asking yourself, how did that situation make me feel? If I was on the other side of the story, how would I have responded? Would I have been hurt by how I treated that person? Or would I have been, was that a protective boundary? Was it an aggressive vengeance kind of energy? And you start tuning into yourself. And then those values become more clearer and clearer as you interact with others.
Yeah. So when you were doing all of your reflection, did you have actual tools you were using, or was it just a lot of reflection and introspection and thinking about where that originated from? Or, like I said, did you have actual tools to use?
So the type of therapy that I practice, I have had my own clinical business before, where I've offered somatic psychotherapy. I have very much used those tools in my own life, and I'm a big believer that the body is as important as the mind. So we have different systems. We have energetic systems. We have a physical system. We have a spiritual system. We have an intellectual system. I'm a big believer that each one of them has their own wisdom. And so for me, it was very much a case of in tuning into my body, but also thinking about my thoughts. So how does that thought make me feel? And being able to then go to the feeling and give the feeling a voice. One of the things I've studied is neuroaffective touch, and it's a practice that psychologists are starting to pick up, and it looks at the capacity of touch to heal the body's memory of the intellectual experiences and the worldly experiences that we've had. So if you have been slapped in the face, that you might have an affront to your emotional system. You may feel pissed off and angry, but your body has also registered a shock, because how can you not be shocked if someone slaps you in the face? So each part of those, if the shock traps the anger, then it becomes part of the way you relate to the world. So these are a lot of the tools that I use personally myself, is to connect those, the body and the mind and the spiritual belief, values, ethics of how I live my life. So how do I feel? What do I think about that? And then how does that reflect in my belief system? It's beyond cognitive therapy. It's opening a mind-body dialogue. All right, brain, how do you feel about it when stomach hurts like that? All right, stomach, why are you hurting? You upset that brain's not listening to you? Like, have you got something to tell us?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that a relatively new modality, or has that been around for a while?
It's the founder, Aileen, has come out of the US. She does a lot of training in Europe. Australia's a little bit behind in getting on board with some of these more, body somatic experiences. We've had somatic experiencing in Australia for a while, but as a society, Australians are quite touch adverse.
Really? I'd never noticed.
And it's highly litigious. And so we've removed touch from our schools, and sometimes for very valid reasons.
Yeah.
We've removed it from families. We've removed it from even allowing children to explore their own touch. And we've removed it from psychology and healing. We've reserved touch for medical procedures and intimate partners. And so I think that it's something that is developing in Australia, but it has been in the world for quite some time. And the idea of somatic healing has been around since the 80s. So it's relatively new in terms of therapy, though.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny you say that about the touch, because it's one of the things growing up. I mean, I had affection from my mum to a reasonable degree. However, we didn't do a lot of hugging and stuff. But I know once I became an adult and I clicked to that, I'm very much, as you know, I'm like, I hug anyone that wants a hug. And I've even considered becoming a professional hugger, because I've had people say to me, you give good hugs.
You do.
Thank you very much. And it's one of those things where I think that's one of my values, the things I'm like, no, get past the shame and the social judgment and all of this sort of rubbish and get to what's real. So that helps me become more me, because I know if I'm hugging people for a reasonable length of time, I start to feel good as well, because I'm being me, and because I like hugging, it's fun. So it's one of those things. I discovered it and went, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm very much a hugger in some circles and very much not a hugger in others. And I guess for me, it's about feeling into, do I want to connect so intimately with this person? And when I say intimately, I mean there is an intimacy in a hug. It's not a sexual
watching it
intimacy.
Past a few seconds, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I will hug some and not others, but that's personally like a radar. And that's how I've taught my children, my sons, ask if they're a hugger, offer a hug if you want a hug, ask for a hug if you want a hug, and decline a hug if you don't want a hug.
Yeah. Because I know I've tried to train all my male friends to hug,
Yeah.
and most of them are okay. And I've got one mate who he did the same weekend training that I did many years ago for men. And when I first hugged him, it was like really stiff, like a board. And now, only two and a bit years later, when I have a hug with him, we'll be out in public and he'll be hugging me for like 30 seconds or a minute. And it's just like, this is starting to get awkward even for me. So it's obviously helped him express himself, which is really nice. But it's just funny how people have that value of, no, don't touch me, don't touch me. And it's like, is that actually really you, or because you're hurt and don't want to get people close to you? Or because I'm the same with you. There's certain people I'll happily hug, and others I'm hesitant because it's like, is it because they don't like hugs? Is it because they don't like me? And you get all this sort of dialogue starts going in your head, and it's I want to hug you because I want you to know that you're cared for and someone gives a shit and all of this sort of stuff. So hugs are a funny thing.
They are great. I guess the only caveat to have one, if I had to have one, is if you think about your skin as a boundary to your body, if somebody's suffered violation in their past, the kindest gift you can give them is respecting their boundary. And the skin is such an intimate, sensitive organ. It has so many proprioceptors in it that feed the brain, feed the nervous system, and all of those things, and create cascades of hormones. It's why I ask, do you want a hug? Can I have a hug? I'd like a hug. Do you want a hug? And I just make a game of it, right? And I'm not afraid. I'm not personally attacked. I don't feel personally attacked if someone says no. I'll be like, okay, cool.
Oh, that's right. You've got to respect their boundaries. But also, and I'm guessing you would have had a similar upbringing because this was sort of rife as an attitude. You have to hug your grandparents. You have to hug your uncle or your auntie or the family. And it's just like, but I don't want to. They're smelly and they feel weird. And you know what I mean? As a kid, you got all of this, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So I think I had to battle that once I became an adult about I don't really want to hug, but now I'm like, okay, now I know where it comes from. And it's, again, I've explored it and it's a value that for me is important. The old hug. My boys, I hug them regularly.
Yeah. So one of my boys is autistic, and a hug for him is not comfortable. He will occasionally give me one, and when he does, I'm just like, I get a hug today. Sometimes I get a headbutt, and his intention is the same, right? It's him showing me love. I think it's important to remember that we have to teach kids to respect their own boundaries and their own intuition, because if we take that away from them, they're completely at risk and exposed later on in life, in relationship, in business, in so many different aspects. Yeah, so if my kids don't want to hug someone, I'm just like, well, how else can you show them that you're greeting them?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that, I'm not demonizing the hug, and I'm not trying to disagree with you. I'm just...
Oh, no. I know that there's a lot of aspects to hugging, and you're right. It is an intensely intimate thing. And as much as I love to hug people, there's some that I just go, oh yeah, this is a good hug. I like this one. And other ones where I'm just like, I know you need the hug, so I'll give you one. So I do have a scale, but I still do like giving hugs though.
Yeah. And one where you're like, okay, off you go.
like my dad, he is very much old school. Men don't hug. It's just not on. And the best I've ever got off him is a side hug. Where you go next to each other and it's like, yeah, good job. It's just like, come on, Dad.
Yeah. Well, he's lost.
Oh, well, that's just his generation. I mean, he's 85, 86 now. So when he grew up, men were men, and you didn't do that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a lost thought process. We have come a long way as a society, but it's not completely lost.
You like to think we've evolved. Some have, others, yeah, maybe not so
Yeah,
much.
we're doing our best.
We are. Okay, so what sort of things are in your future plans in regards to, I know you're doing your psychology, but once you finish that, where are you going after that?
Well, I think the dream for me was always to have a clinic,
Okay.
to have a multi-service space where I could bring other somatic practitioners together.
Okay.
So craniosacral, massage, acupuncture, herbalism, bring a lot of those things together alongside of psychology and spiritualism. I have an amazing friend, Prati, who I ring, and she does Vedic astrology for me every now and then.
She does what?
Vedic astrology.
So
So,
Vedic as in India?
yep.
And so hang on.
Astrology
So
as in birth
I know we've
charts
got
and
Eastern
readings.
horoscopes and Western horoscopes. Is this something
Yep.
totally different?
It's a practice that's come out of India that's been practiced for a long time. So you have Chinese astrology, you have Western horoscopes, and then you have a Vedic astrology is just another arm off that.
Right.
And Prati is she's fabulous. And sometimes I have a question that I want to look at from a point of view that is outside of me, and I will ask her. So I think if I go down this pathway where I open a space, I want it to be a space where people can come in and be nourished. Like that would be the point of it.
Yep.
Where their spirit can be nourished and they can find their way through support back to the path that and the lessons that they're here to learn and you know, the gifts that they're here to share and the challenges that they're here to face. That would be that space. There's so many facets to that I'd love to explore in the future. Right. Alongside of that, I think that I've been very privileged and blessed to have choice too, because growing a business empire with my husband and, you know, really going into alongside of that, I have a very critical mind. I'm very compliance based. I'm very analytical. And so I get to operate in that space in my other business and really go down that pathway of all of the intellectual gifts that I've inherited, probably from my father, and be able to explore that. And I have beautiful land. So, you know, my future is bright and abundant and has many paths and options for me to choose from.
Nice. So you might as well explore them all.
Oh, absolutely. We only live in this body in this moment once, right?
Yeah. Well, allegedly.
Well, I don't think I'll come back in this body again. I'd like to be a dude next time, maybe.
Oh, there's pluses and minuses on both sides. I can tell you. I mean, I'm glad I'm not a woman, so it's
yeah.
Circling back a little bit, you mentioned about having your little one-stop shop where people come in and look after their bodies. And tying it into the metaphor using your workshops, you know, people bring their cars in, they get them serviced regularly. It's, you know, at this many kilometers, at this many.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the value that a lot of people have about looking after their health is far below looking after their car?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. So long answer to a probably long story to a short answer. I think that people prioritize their health when it's right for them to do so. When they have the resources and the courage and the knowing to step into that space. And when they have the support. So my phone has been bombarding me with weight loss ads. And it just annoys me. And I'm like, I play games and I don't like to pay for them, so I have to watch an ad to get to the next level. And it's profiled me. It's profiled me, and it's decided that I would like to know about all of these different military calisthenics and all of these things. And I think that prioritizing your health looks like having the courage and the means and the time to tune into what that actually means for you. It's very easy, if you can afford it, to take your car to get a service. It's external, right?
Yep.
Our health is so intimate and personal and internal that even stepping through trauma, if you don't have support networks around you, can have negative impacts on your health. So,
absolutely.
When we're looking at deep core wounds, if a person hasn't built up the resources to go to regular therapy financially, they don't have the time to be able to do that, they don't have the support networks in place to support them with that, then it's going to be a long, challenging road. Not to say they shouldn't start, but that's what I always advise people. When you're ready to take the next health challenge, look at all of those things. What is my time budget? What is my financial budget? What modality works for me? Because there's so many on option. Does it feel right when I connect with this therapist? Are they the right one for me? Do I need to go to the gym and activate my muscles because I have things stored in there and I need to feel like I can support myself in the world? So long story to probably a short answer, which is yes and no.
And sort of the reason why I asked is I read a book a while ago, Outlived by Dr. Peter Attia. Have you read it by chance?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so this bloke studies not just longevity, but keeping your health as long as possible. So you're not just old and frail, you're older and active and vital and everything. Anyway, I read in here in the book that one of the best indicators of your long-term health is your grip strength. Now, my father has a very strong handshake. And he always jokes whenever we're shaking hands, he goes, "Oh, your grip's getting a bit weak there, son." And so I've got to give it a good squeeze, typical of that generation. But I asked him a while ago, how come you've got such a strong grip? And he goes, every morning I get up and I do my squats, I do my bicep curls, I do my push-ups, and it's just like, wow. And I suddenly had a flashback to when I was a kid, and you'd walk past his bedroom and he'd be in there doing sit-ups and push-ups. And it's so obviously somewhere along the line, even though he went through a period when he was younger where he smoked and he drank too much, now he really looks after his health. So obviously that value must have been instilled in him from somewhere. And so that's why I sort of asked initially about the nature versus nurture. And it's just weird how all of this stuff comes in and you don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, for true. I think that, again, you may reject healthy food. My children often say, when you used to cook birthday cakes and use avocado instead of sugar, it killed me inside.
Really?
I went through a phase not long after my son's diagnosis. Not long after my son's diagnosis, I went through that phase of no food colors, no takeaways, only home-cooked things, no excessive sugar, like really tight control. And now, I don't eat a lot of sweet things myself. I'm diabetic. It's just the card that I was dealt. Yeah. But I also I have a lot less control over things like that. I'm much more in balance with things like that. So
I'm glad you found that balance.
So are my kids.
I can imagine.
In saying that, I will still opt for a beetroot chocolate cake over a regular chocolate cake. So my taste buds have changed over the years, but that's my choice for me.
That's fair enough. So actually, here's a good question for you, parent to parent. You had that real firm period with the eating. Have you found that your boys generally are still healthy eaters, or have they sort of rebelled and gone down that path?
I would say that my children will eat for convenience.
Right.
If you put a plate of beautiful, healthy food in front of them, they will eat it. If you put a plate of McDonald's, which you wouldn't find in this house,
She says begrudgingly,
but they have their own money now, so sometimes I can't control that.
yeah.
Then they will eat it. So they eat for convenience rather than one way or the other, but it all kind of works out in the end. One thing I'm really proud of is that all of my children, and the youngest is 16 now, can cook. So
Nice. Well
it's one
done.
of the things, yeah, and it's not all my doing, because Michael is a qualified chef by trade from all of these years ago. So in our house, we know how to do things. We cook a lot.
Excellent.
So if they whatever they choose, they can do. Yeah.
Nice. And I think that's so important. Every kid should learn how to cook, change a light bulb, change a tire, sew. I mean, my boys always used to come to me if they had a button come off, because I was a better sewer than their mum.
Yep. It's life, right? It's efficacy.
Absolutely. But it's important. Actually, I heard a good one the other day. This girl texts her dad and she goes, "Dad, I've got a flat tire. Can you come and change it?" And he's like, "Haven't you got a boyfriend?" He goes, he can't change a tire. Can you talk me through this step by step? And he goes, "Yep, no worries. First step, get rid of the boyfriend."
That's terrible and hilarious.
Pinch of truth in that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've only got a couple of minutes left. It's amazing how fast an hour goes.
Yeah.
Have you got anything you want to chuck in for people that are listening regarding values or anything?
I guess one of the biggest things for me in my life right now is to act through kindness. And it's important for me to establish my values and my ethics, my own ethical point of view, so that I can do that. I would say to people, once they start exploring their values and their ethics, to decide which ones are non-negotiable and which ones are not, which ones are more flexible, and then apply them to themselves as well as to others, because we often think that these are the things that we need to go out into the world with. But if we're not treating ourselves with kindness, if we're not being truthful to ourselves, if we're not communicating our needs, then we're not really living into those values either, right? So start at home, start with yourself, figure out how you want to be in the world, and then give that to yourself first.
Yeah, because if you can't be kind to yourself, it's going to be hard to be kind to others.
Yeah.
And we're all doing the best we can with the tools that we've got.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I've really enjoyed this, KayTee, as I always do when I talk to you and your wonderful husband. You're a gorgeous couple, and you're nice to be around. Even though we don't get to see each other very often, it's still always a pleasure to catch up, as it has been tonight.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we added some value to people out there.
We certainly hope so. You look after yourself, and we'll catch up soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Edge Radio.